Hi, students, let's get started with the subject Social Science, Chapter 1. Locating places on the Earth. Imagine that you are visiting a city for the first time. How would you find the places you want to visit? You might ask a local person for help, or you might look at a map of the city. In previous grades, you learnt a little about maps, and in this chapter, we will study them in more detail. Let us play a game. Examine the map of this small city. Imagine that you just got off a train at the railway station and you want to visit the bank marked on the map. Which way would you go? Are there other possible ways? Can you locate the public garden, the school and the museum? If you want to proceed from the bank to the market, which way will you go? This is where a map comes in handy. A map is like a treasure guide. It shows you where things are and how to get to them. Notice the 4 arrows in the top right corner of the map. We will soon see how they point to some specific directions and make maps even more helpful. A map and its components. From this simple example, we understand that a map is a representation or a drawing of some area. It may be a small area, a village, a town, etc. A bigger area, say, your district or state, or a very large area like India or even the whole world. In a map, you look at the surface as if you are viewing it from the top. An atlas is a book or collection of maps. As you will discover, there are several kinds of maps. Physical maps, which mainly show some natural features such as mountains, oceans and rivers. Political maps, which show details of countries or states, boundaries, cities, etc. For instance, a map of India with all its states, union territories and their capitals. Thematic maps, with a specific kind of information. In addition, there are 3 important components of maps: distance, direction and symbols. You have already experienced the first 2 while navigating the map. Let us now define them more precisely. Have you ever wondered how a huge place can fit on a small piece of paper? It is all thanks to the map's scale. Let us go back to our map of a small city. Each centimeter on the map, as printed here, represents a certain distance on the ground. Let us suppose it is 500 meters. We say that the scale is 1 centimeter equals 500 meters. In chapter 5 of this textbook, the scale is represented in the bottom left corner by a ruler with 500 written above its length and kilometer on the side. It simply means that this ruler, which measures 2.5 centimeters in the printed map, corresponds to 500 kilometers on the ground. So, the actual distance between 2 points represented on the map depends on the scale that the map is using. Let us return to the 4 arrows at the top right of the small city's map. They point to 4 directions, which are north, at the top, and moving clockwise, east, south and west. These are called the cardinal directions, also cardinal points. Other than these, intermediate directions are also used: northeast, southeast, say, southwest, SW, and northwest, NW. Most maps simply have an arrow marked with the letter N, which points to the north direction. Symbols are another important component of maps. Our map has small drawings of actual buildings and a few other elements, but there would not be enough space on the map of a large city or a country to draw them all. Instead, a symbol is used to represent these features, symbols for different kinds of buildings, for instance a railway station, a school, a post office, for roads and railway lines, and for natural elements such as a river, a pond, or a forest. In that way, numerous details can be shown in the limited space available on a map. To make maps more easily understood by a variety of users, map makers use specific symbols. Different countries use different sets of symbols. The Survey of India, a government body, has fixed a set of symbols for maps of India or parts of India. A small selection of them is shown on page 12. Mapping the Earth is a little more difficult because our planet is not a flat surface. It nearly has the shape of a sphere. We say nearly because it is not a perfect sphere but is slightly flattened at the poles. However, in practice, we will consider it to be spherical. Representing a sphere accurately on a flat sheet of paper is not possible. To understand why, peel an orange in such a way that you have just 3 or 4 large pieces of the skin. Then try and flatten them on a table. You will see that you cannot do it without tearing them at the edges. Now, consider a globe, which is a sphere on which a map is drawn. This may be a map of the Earth, the Moon, the planet Mars, the stars and constellations in the sky, etc. The physical object, like the one shown in the drawing on the next page, is a sphere that is generally made of metal, plastic, or cardboard. Here we will study the globe representing the Earth's geography. Because the globe and the Earth have the same spherical shape, a globe will better represent the geography of the Earth than a flat map. Let us now explore some of its features. A. Understanding coordinates. Imagine a big market in a city or town with neat rows of shops, all the same size. You want to meet a friend at a stationery shop inside the market. But your friend does not know where the shop is. So you would give directions like, meet me at 6 p.m. at the 7th shop in the 5th row from the entrance. This will allow your friend to precisely determine your location. Now, consider a chessboard. To record moves by advanced players, letters are placed alongside the main pieces from A to H. See the image and numbers from 1 to 8 in between the two sides. This simple system allows players to mark each square and record every move. Here, the white side has just opened the game by moving the queen's pawn 2 squares forward, a very common opening. So, the pawn is said to have moved from d2 to d4. The system used in these two examples may be called a system of coordinates. Thanks to their two coordinates, the stationery shop as well as the chess square on the chessboard can be precisely determined. A similar system of coordinates is used in the world of maps to determine the location of any place on a map. Let us see how this system works. B. Latitudes. Let us return to the globe. It is easy to identify the North Pole and the South Pole on it. Rotate the globe. While it rotates, the fixed points at the top and bottom are the two poles. Halfway between them is the equator. Note the circle marking it. Imagine that you stand on the equator and travel towards one of the poles. Your distance from the equator increases. Latitude measures this distance from the equator. At any point of this travel, you can draw an imaginary line that runs east and west, parallel to the equator. Such a line is called a parallel of latitude, and it draws a circle around the Earth. Again, it is easy to note on the globe that the largest circle is the equator, while the circles marked by the parallels of latitude grow smaller as we move northward or southward. Latitudes are expressed in degrees. By convention, the equator is latitude 0 degrees, 0 degree, while the latitudes of the two poles are 90 degrees north and 90 degrees south respectively. This is noted 90 degree N and 90 degree S. There is a connection between latitude and climate. Around the equator, the climate is generally hot. It is also called torrid. One of the two poles, in other words, as your latitude increases, the climate becomes more moderate or temperate. And closer to the north or south pole, the climate grows colder or frigid. You will learn in science why this is so, and also why we experience different seasons in the course of a year. See, longitudes. Imagine now that you travel from the North Pole to the South Pole by the shortest possible line. Observe the globe. You will see that instead of passing through Europe and Africa, you could just as well pass through Asia. The distance would be the same. These lines are called meridians of longitude. They are all half circles running from one pole to the other. You will also learn in science that the Earth spins on its axis. To put it simply, let's place a desk lamp a little away from our globe, focused on it, and imagine that this is the sun illuminating the Earth. Slowly rotating the globe eastward, we can note that for some places on the Earth it is morning, while for others it is midday, evening or night. When it's breakfast time in one country, it's lunch time in another, and in a third country people are fast asleep. That is why by measuring the longitude of a place, we will also be measuring the time at that place. Let us see how. To measure longitudes, we need to define a reference point called the prime meridian. It is also called Greenwich Meridian because, in the year 1884, some nations decided that the meridian passing through Greenwich, an area of London in England, would become the international standard for the prime meridian. It is marked as 0 degrees longitude. Just as latitude is a measure of the distance from the equator if you travel towards one of the poles, longitude is a measure of the distance from the prime meridian if you travel along the equator. Longitude, too, is measured in degrees. Westward or eastward, it increases in value from 0 degrees to 180 degrees, with the letter W or E added. For instance, using round figures, New York's longitude is 74° W, while Delhi's is 77° E and Tokyo's is 140° E. All these lines together constitute a grid for the globe. They are also called grid lines. Understanding time zones, let's make the globe rotate again from west to east. That is how our planet spins around its axis, making a full turn every 24 hours. A full turn is 360 degrees, so this means 15 degrees per hour. 15 times 24 equals 360. Let us now mark the meridians of longitude every 15 degrees. Moving eastward from the prime meridian, we get 0 degrees, 15° E, 30° E, 45° E, and so on every 15 degrees up to 180° E. It is the same as adding 1 hour of local time with each meridian. If it is 12 p.m. or noon at Greenwich, it is 1 p.m. local time at 15° E, 2 p.m. at 30° E, and so on. But going westward, it is the other way round. 11 a.m. local time at 15° W, 10 a.m. at 30° W, etc. The same method can be used to calculate the local time of any place on the earth. But it would not be convenient for a country to use many local times. That is why most countries adopt a standard time based on a meridian passing through them. Indian Standard Time, IST, is 5 hours 30 minutes, also noted 5.5 hours, ahead of the local time at Greenwich, called Greenwich Mean Time or GMT. All these standard times are organized in time zones, which broadly follow the zones of 15 degrees in the graph. But let us consider the world map below. We can see that the lines dividing the time zones are not fully straight. This is because they have to respect each country's standard time and, therefore, tend to follow international borders. The numbers written inside some countries are the numbers of hours to be added to GMT to get their standard times if they have a positive sign, or subtracted from GMT if they have a negative sign. Similarly, the globe centered on India shows standard times with respect to GMT for a few countries. Finally, while the prime meridian was fixed at Greenwich, the opposite line, at approximately 180 degrees longitude, is called the International Date Line. As you can see on the map, the +12 and the 12 time zones touch each other at this line. If you cross it by ship or plane, you need to change the date in your watch. If you cross it traveling eastward, you subtract a day, say, from Monday to Sunday. If you cross it traveling westward, you add a day, from Sunday to Monday. We said that the international date line is approximately at 180 degrees longitude, as it deviates in places to avoid dividing some countries into two different days. Before we move on, maps are a very useful tool to represent an area of the earth, whether small or large. The main components of maps are distance, direction, and symbols. Every place on the earth has a location which can be precisely defined with the help of a grid of latitudes and longitudes. Imaginary lines running from east to west, parallel to the equator, and north to south, from pole to pole, respectively. Longitude also marks the time and defines the time zones. The international date line is located approximately at 180 degrees longitude, opposite the prime meridian. Crossing the international date line changes the date by 1 day. Thanks for watching.